everyone. Welcome to our show. Nadeem, hello, sir. I haven't heard from you today. I usually hear from you at least once. I was like, Nadeem's got to be busy.
Yeah, I was tied up. It's and this might help customers. I mean, so towards the end of the year, as we get into November, December, that's the best time to start planning for the next year.
Yep.
So around this time, I get more than usually, I get a little more busy because I'm doing all the planning for next year and all of that. So this year I'm doing something a little different. I'm planning, I've got the 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1 year, and then quarterly. So I'm planning everything out. So, and being in the MSP business, we have, I mean, with any industry, I guess, we have some specific metrics that we have to track and work with and just kind of push some needles in a certain direction. And so we kind of, have to get our head in there and be focused on it and get that done. So yeah, it's been a busy day, but I'm not the only one who's been busy. I mean, the bad guys have been pretty busy too, right?
Now, unless you've had, your head in the sand under a rock, this SolarWinds thing is. I think I sent you an article yesterday, and I'm like, man, this is really, really bad. I mean, you don't really know the scope of it until you really had a chance to read. And then, every morning before I even start working, I get up at 6:30. I'm watching CNN, and it was like boom, right there. They're talking about how I'm talking huge companies. Affected. Yeah.
So, if any of you out there haven't seen the videos, I mean, we started talking about this last Friday, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I don't even think we knew. I don't think we knew how severe it was.
Yeah, we didn't know the scope at that time, and the scope is still not fully fleshed out. I mean, it's still kind of growing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of federal agencies that have kind of come in now. I mean, that have been targeted. So federal agencies that have been impacted, not that they're doing the investigations, but they've been impacted.
Yeah.
Microsoft's gotten impacted. They got pulled in. So a lot of big companies are getting pulled into this. And let me share my screen real quick with some of the folks out there that, and I'll just share this. So hopefully you can see this.
I see it.
But the Microsoft president, and he started. Brad Smith started throwing some warning bells out, and this is all. It all starts. It's that SolarWinds Orion platform with the Fireeye component, and so far every entity that has been involved with this is saying it's looking like a Russian state-sponsored hack incident. So this is, I think the time of expecting a breach or being prepared for a breach is done. We cannot go on the premise that we might be impacted by a breach. We should be working in business assuming we have been breached.
Yeah.
We should be implementing systems as we have been breached. So assume breach and then set your processes around that. So if you assume breach, then as you're setting up your processes, you will start to isolate different processes so that you can separate the impact of one process on another. And I think going forward, that's going to be the big revelation of this entire fiasco is going to be that every company out there just assumes breach. but this has impacted a lot of different places, and there's an interesting map here. Let me show you the map. This is the telemetry data that Microsoft collects and from their Defender and ATP processes. So this is where the impact has been felt from this breach.
Wow.
Now, what I'm seeing is pretty much every developed country and most developing countries have been impacted.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. And where is this impact focused? All the hot zones, the reds and the yellows, they're all in the US. So it's a worldwide impact. I mean, look at that. Mongolia. Who the hell wants to I mean, okay. But anyway, but here's the thing though. What's interesting is nothing in Russia. Absolutely nothing in Russia. Look at that.
Holy
all
crap.
Clear.
That's interesting.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now, of course, a lot of countries in Africa are not impacted either, but I think that was by design. Nobody wanted to impact those countries, but like why would anybody want to breach into Ethiopia? But anyway,
right.
but no impact in Russia, and next door Mongolia is impacted. Every other country pretty much impacted, and I think the target of the breach was the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's just the other countries are on the list because they happen to use the same technology that was used in the breach. So that's why they're impacted, but they were not the primary targets. And that's why we don't see the red and the yellow hot zones anywhere else. A little bit of higher than usual activity in the UK.
In the UK, yeah.
But that's about it.
A little bit in Germany there.
Yep. But yeah, the red and the yellows, which are really the hot zones, that's the primary targets. They're in the U.S. and folks, in the U.S., look at the states. Which states are impacted? Right here in Texas.
Texas.
A big red dot.
Yeah, big old red dot in Texas. Yeah.
Big red dot. Yep. So. A lot of, the fallout of this is not, it might go for, we're not talking about 1 or 2 years. I think we're looking at like 10 years or more kind of time frame. So this is a long-term deal that happened, but we'll come back to that. But the lesson learned from this breach is everybody should be operating on the premise of assumed breach. Assume that you have been breached and then set up your processes around that.
Well, one thing that somebody said that it was kind of scary when I was listening this morning, he said it's no longer a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. And then the funny thing is, I was like, holy crap, Nadeem has been saying that for like months. Nadeem has been saying that.
Well, and Mac, the thing is, I understand a lot of our customers and other industry leaders out there, companies out there that are in industries other than IT. From their perspective, they don't see this stuff day in and day out, So to them, it's like, out of sight, out of mind type deal. They don't see this stuff unless it's such a big, huge incident that it's on the national news. Then they see it. We see it almost on a daily basis. Little companies here and there hacked, breached, scammed, all this kind of stuff. We see it on a daily basis. So we kind of see how bad and dirty it really is. A lot of other people, other CEOs out there, they don't see those kind of things. They don't. So it's it's kind of that. It's kind of like that. But we'll come back to that. We'll continue this. What are we going to talk about today?
So I know a lot of people when they think of Microsoft, the only thing they think about is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams. But for businesses, it can be the lifeline of the business. I wanted Nadeem to really talk about the enterprise solutions that Microsoft offers, manufacturing. Heck, I even saw financials, so banks, investment company. So I want you to talk about that because I don't think people really know that you can do a lot, and I mean a lot with Microsoft.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's one word that I have for you, Mac, and it's called dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Anything under the dynamics umbrella is for the enterprise space. Now, a lot of these technologies were acquired by Microsoft over the course of the years and then streamlined, integrated. So now they're part of the Microsoft Dynamics family. Some of these technologies, Microsoft has brought them downstream into the small to medium-sized business. A lot of businesses that have kind of outgrown their financial systems from, maybe they started out small with QuickBooks and now they've kind of outgrown, they're hitting the upper limits of QuickBooks. There is a transition path to something called Dynamics Business Central, which does basically it's the enterprise design Dynamics, and then it's brought down into the small business space, and it's all based on a per usage model. But we have different modules for different industries. So we have a specific module for professional services. We have a point of sale module. We have a manufacturing module. So we have specific modules for all these different industries. Now, here's what makes Microsoft different from anybody else out there. I don't care who it is. And that is their AI. So when you go, and I'll give you an example. Let's say you're using Microsoft Business Central, which is the financial system. So it's kind of like, think of it your QuickBooks. And if you're running, let's say, an inventory replenishment system, or you need to figure out when to replenish your inventory. So the Microsoft system has built-in AI that will automatically suggest how much to order of a product based on their history.
Really? That reminds me of Sage almost.
Exactly. So it's similar to Sage, but the AI is much more accurate because it's running on the same AI that's running in Microsoft's Azure, which, I think if you look at the compute power, it's many times better than what Sage has out there. So they're bringing this, they're basically commoditizing AI for everybody out there. And that's a double-edged sword, really. When I first started looking at other industries, I quickly realized how we as IT professionals really screwed ourselves up. We really did. We basically started competing on price, and yes. It was a downward spiral. Compared to some other industries where there could be, 100, 150% profit margins. In IT, you're lucky if you get 20% profit margins because we as IT people did it to ourselves. It's kind of like the example of doctors, in the medical field. So there are doctors who really got screwed, but then the corporations and the pharma companies really made a killing. And, not to use that word,
but yeah.
So what happened is, like a lot of other industries, they played it right. We didn't, and I kind of feel like Microsoft is doing the same thing with AI. They're going to commoditize AI and bring it to everybody. The good thing is, for consumers, and I'm a consumer of Microsoft's AI. When I'm talking about AI, I'm really just a consumer, right? So as for consumers, it's a great deal because we can get access to AI at a much lower price point. When it gets commoditized, and these systems, the dynamic systems, bring AI into our processes. For manufacturing, you can do just-in-time ordering. So, a JIT is built in to where, if you need to manufacture, let's say, an engine, and you need to have certain bolts or camshafts on hand, the system can automatically alert the purchasing people to go ahead and place an order for so many items, so that what is in process to be built is not delayed. It will take into account things like what's happening in the market. So, for example, let's say all of a sudden something drastic happens and shipments are all of a sudden delayed by 10 days. It can accommodate for that. So it's not just, putting some figures together and calling it AI. It's actual AI that is making these decisions and then alerting somebody to make make the final choice. So basically, it alerts the human to, hey, you might want to order this stuff sooner because shipping is getting backlogged, things like that. So, and there's multiple modules. Like I said, in Dynamics, you have, you use for manufacturing. There is point of sale. Actually, we're working on an implementation for a point of sale system where it's all integrated, right? And it's all, not only is it integrated, but also if you combine that with Business Central, now all of a sudden you have that AI throughout the entire company. So you start at your point of sale terminals all the way up to your financial systems, your accounting, everything is AI driven.
Nice.
So those are some of the synergies that you get by using a well integrated stack. Now, it's taken Microsoft years. I mean, I remember back in the day when Microsoft first bought companies like Great Plains. Have you heard of Great Plains?
I remember Great Plains. Yeah, they were a competitor. Yeah. So, they bought Great Plains.
Oh yeah, that long time ago. Yeah. It's part of Dynamics now. So they got Great Plains, they got Navision, they got a few companies that they bought back in the day, and the goal was to come up with this holistic type platform that can serve so many different industries. So the point of sale, the Dynamic Business Central, the Dynamics manufacturing, Dynamics retail, all these different modules are coming out of those acquisitions. So now is the time that Microsoft has done the integration part and they're ready to start selling it, selling the licenses to customers. And
wow.
and the big thing here is that, if Microsoft had not purchased Great Plains would stay to be like the large enterprise system.
Yeah.
Small business just wouldn't be able to afford it. Because of the Microsoft purchase of Great Plains and Navision and these now small businesses can afford these solutions. And I know a lot of small businesses who are outgrowing their QuickBooks. They're just hitting that upper ceiling. I mean, a flat database can only go so far. You need a full-fledged, some sort of a SQL server-based system to run the amount of data that's flowing through companies nowadays. I mean, even a small company, 5-10 users, a lot of times I see them hitting the upper limits of QuickBooks. And the natural, easy transition is to Dynamics Business Central. I mean, it's all in the cloud. It's easy. It integrates well with a lot of third-party applications. So I think it's an all-around good solution. Now here's the thing: when people are talking about technology and AI and all that. So take the example of a services company, right? Let's say a company that services those big dump trucks in the mining industry, right? Those big, huge, where the wheels are bigger than a person,
Yeah.
So now, not only can you integrate all your systems, but here's the good part: you can actually get a HoloLens-based system where a tech in the field can virtually work with an engineer in the office at the back, where the engineer can actually see what the tech is seeing in 3D.
Wow.
So now the engineer can actually walk and touch the components that he is seeing, because what the tech in the field is seeing, the same thing the engineer is seeing, and the engineer can pinpoint, hey, this is the hose that you want to replace. I mean, it just solves huge problems. We can rotate the engine. We can say, oh, by the way, and like if the tech says, oh, where's the fuel filter on this engine? I haven't worked with this engine before. Oh, no problem. He can rotate that engine and say, look at that round thing. That's the fuel filter. I mean, it's just, it's almost like back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, and we always used to think, wow, the world will be so different if we had some kind of a portable device that our techs can have in the field where we can see what they're seeing and we can show them stuff. Well, now we have those phones where, the techs can do a remote session and do that. But Microsoft is taking it a step further. So now you can see that entire thing in 3D. Not only that, but the engineer can now show a wire diagram to the tech in the field, so the tech knows where to look to replace the components they need to replace. And that is, that's like a major change that's happening in the oil field. It's happening in the services industry, especially in the services industry. It's huge. I'm seeing large companies that manufacture like commercial AC units. Their techs are equipped with it. Companies supporting mining equipment, their techs are equipped with it. I think, I always say this, and I know I always say this because we are always living in such exciting times, but right now we are truly living in very exciting times.
It's funny, they talk about when art imitates life. I can remember, I'm a Star Wars geek. I love Star Wars. I'm a huge fan. And there was and I think the original trilogy where you see them looking at this holograph diagram of the Death Star and they're twisting and turning. Now, this was in the 70s when they did that. That's what makes it amazing, is that now here we are with that. That's awesome.
Well, it's the same thing, like in Star Trek, they used to have these communicators. Well, now we have communicators.
Yeah, we have communicators on our head. Yeah.
It's like, now I don't know, sometimes I think about this. I'm like, if the artists making these movies hadn't envisioned it, would we have made it?
That's a great question, and I have often thought of that. Like, there was I almost want to say it was one of the Bond films that Pierce Brosnan was in. I think it was the first one, and in there the villain, Jonathan Pryce, I think, was the villain, and he was on a pad. And he was doing this on a pad, and then almost 20 years later, the iPad came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's mind blowing that you say that. And like, if these guys weren't thinking of this, somebody picks it up and say, we can make that happen. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think a lot of things work that way. Somebody somewhere envisions it, and then somebody tries to make that vision possible. Like the idea of the iPad. There's a lot of companies that tried and failed before the iPad to make that thing happen. What they saw in it was just in movies. And we already have movies where we have these AI robots interacting with humans as humans. And I think we are going to get there. There's already in Japan, there's already prototypes, faces made, because humans work with human-looking faces better. They interact with them better. Yeah. So there's already prototype robots made to look like humans, just so they can help like either the elderly or whatever have you. But the thing is, if somebody hadn't envisioned this, then I don't know if the techies and the geeks would have even thought of inventing something like that.
That's a great point.
But yeah. But dynamics, that HoloLens, a lot of times, people ask me, it's like, what is Microsoft doing with all these technologies? HoloLens is not going anywhere. Remember that Xbox and their gestures in the air? That people were like, oh, that's not going anywhere. Well, it did. Things are going places.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was like, so, we're taking a little detour here, but one of my app dev guys asked me one time, he was like, hey, Nadeem, sometimes I get bored. What should I do? What do you do when you get bored? And I'm like, what do you mean you get bored? There's just so much stuff to do. What do you mean you get bored? It was like, well, I finished this project, so I have nothing to work on now. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean you have nothing to work on? I'm like, and I asked him this. I was like, look, have you thought about making an interactive remote for a TV where you don't have to hold anything in your hand? And he was like, you can't do that. How are you going to do that in thin air? And I was like, well, think about it. We have Xbox. We have the SDK for Xbox where we can do gestures in the air. Have you thought about working on trying to integrate that with, some kind of smart TV or Roku or Apple TV or something like that? And he was like, I never thought about that. We're only limited by our imagination.
That's true.
A lot of those technologies are there. Now, the HoloLens, the HoloLens is actually being used commercially right now in some of these industries that I gave you the example of.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actual commercialized products now. These are not just fantasy. It's actual products, and I think the future. I mean, what are we gonna invent tomorrow? We haven't even thought about it yet. I mean, it's like. It's just exciting times right now. There's so much advancement going on the AI side, on 3D imaging side. The bandwidth is growing by leaps and bounds. Yeah. Throwing 5G with high bandwidth connectivity for all devices. Throwing IPv6 where every device has its own IP address. This is the future we're living in.
Internet of Things, that's becoming, a big thing where, you have sensors on just about everything now. I mean, and funny thing, Microsoft is on the forefront of a lot of this. That's what makes it amazing. Microsoft is like leading a pack in a lot of this.
Right. Yeah. It's like, take the example of IoT you mentioned, So for a lot of other systems out there, you have to build your own IoT framework or your own IoT platforms or your own IoT node to collect this data from devices in the field. With Microsoft's Azure, it's already there. All you got to do is just plug it in. It's already there. And actually, if you are if you're willing to, you can actually request I did. I don't know if they still offer it, but you can request a free IoT device that Microsoft will send it to you, where it's like a little Pi board. It's not really a Pi board, but it's like a little Pi board that you can use. It has a Wi-Fi chip already built in. You can provision it. You can associate it with your Azure service, and you can get telemetry data. It's got a little GPS sensor on it, a temperature sensor on it. So you can do something as simple as putting it in the corner of your house and just being able to check temperature remotely via Azure's IoT service, push to your phone, so you always know what the temperature is in that corner. Just something simple. It can detect humidity, it can detect temperature, it's got Wi-Fi connectivity, and it's a little small device. It's like a board about that big. It's just the possibilities of doing that. So if somebody in IT comes to me and says, "Hey, Nadeem, I'm bored. I don't know what to do," and I'm like, you're not in IT. But yeah, I think we've already taken a lot of time, but folks out there, remember, assume breach, and look into the Dynamics applications. I think those are really game changers when it comes to business, running your business and streamlining your business operations. And of course, as always, everybody have a great day. And if I don't talk to you, I'll talk to you in the new year. And everybody have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll probably talk before the new year. Well, I'm going to be out of town, but we'll try to do another call.
We'll do like maybe we'll do a special edition yearly wrap up of
Oh yeah. It'll be good to have all the text in there too.
That'll be great. Actually, that'll be great.
We'll try to make that happen. All right, Mac. Have a good day.
All right, boss.
Great talking to you as always.
Always. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.